Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, there lived a man who had everything one could ever dream of having. He was handsome, wealthy, and influential. People from neighboring kingdoms would come to him for help, and commoners would stop by just to catch a glimpse of him. Every day when he looked out of his palace window, he would see people waving at him and smiling. And every day he would smile back. He thought he was the happiest man alive. Then one day the king fell ill, and not even the finest doctors could save him. They all shook their heads and left the palace. It seemed like the king's life was hanging by a thread. Desperate to save his best friend, the prince went to a wise hermit who lived deep in the forest. "Please help my father. I'm willing to give you half of my kingdom. Just heal my father." The hermit looked at the young prince and said, "Your father's illness is so severe that only a magical fruit from the other side of the dark mountains can cure him. But be warned, the mountains are full of danger and it's a one-way journey. Once you enter, you cannot return." The prince thanked the hermit for the information and immediately set out to find the magical fruit. The prince rode through the dark mountains for days until finally he saw a small hut. An old woman was sitting outside the hut. "Excuse me," said the prince. "I'm looking for a magical fruit that grows on the other side of these mountains. Can you help me?" The old woman looked at him and said, "I know where that fruit grows, but it's guarded by a fearsome beast. You can't possibly defeat it. I'm willing to do anything to save my father. Please tell me where it is." The old woman told him how to get there, and then the prince continued his journey. He walked for a long time until he saw the magical fruit. It was round, red, and glowed with an inner light. But guarding it was a terrible beast. Its eyes were like burning coals, and its claws were sharp as knives. But the prince was desperate. So, drawing his sword, he charged forward and defeated the beast. He quickly grabbed the fruit and ran as fast as he could. On his way back, the prince stopped by the old woman's house. He gave her half of the fruit, and she immediately began to brew a healing potion. The prince waited patiently until it was ready, and then continued on his way. Soon he heard the familiar sound of drums and singing. People were waving at him from the palace walls. He had made it back in time. When the king drank the potion, he slowly began to feel better. Soon he was back on his feet, and the whole kingdom celebrated. Everyone cheered for the prince, but he didn't care about the celebrations. He threw himself onto his bed, exhausted and dejected. Suddenly, he heard footsteps. It was the king. "My son, you're a hero. Everyone is celebrating your bravery. Why aren't you out there with them?" The prince looked up at his father and asked, "Do you know what I saw on my journey? Do you know what I experienced?" "No, you don't. You have no idea how lonely I was." The king didn't understand what the prince meant. "I saved you, but you don't even thank me or ask how I managed to get the magical fruit. All you do is question me." The king felt terrible. He had no idea his son had gone through so much. He apologized and hugged his son tightly. From that day on, the two spent a lot of time together. The king learned how important his son was, and the prince learned how lucky he was to have such a loving father. In the end, the prince realized that loneliness is worse than poverty, and that no amount of wealth or power can substitute for real relationships.